So in this video, we're going to look at how you can cut the price of your car insurance policy.
We're going to list over 17 ways you can save money on your car insurance, from little known changes you can make to your policy and policy cover, the way you present yourself to your insurance when applying for insurance, and adjustments you can make to your car or your driver's experience that all have a big impact on how risky the insurers perceive you to be.
Now, we all need insurance. This particular video is going to be very biased towards the UK and the UK insurance market. I actually spent 14 years working within the insurance market as a broker, so I got a fair understanding as to how it all worked, how they rated the policies and dealt with claims. And there's just a few little things that, if you know them in advance, you can save yourself an awful lot of money perfectly legally without bending any rules. And you can certainly avoid major problems that crop up when you haven't done things properly and you find yourself with a policy that's just been declared invalid and you're stuck with a claim you have to deal with yourself.
So before we look at ways of reducing our premium, it'd be helpful to just have a quick overview of how insurance got started all those years ago.
So how did insurance actually begin? Well, many years ago, the mariners used to have cargo ships and they would take their cargo across very treacherous, perilous oceans.
Now, the problem was, if they lost a ship or cargo during a storm, it would often put the company out of business and certainly damage their reputation. So they looked for ways of improving this situation, and by going to an insurer or an underwriter, he would assess the probability of one ship going down and divide this up among all of the other policyholders. So if something did happen, there's money there in this pool of resources to cover the costs and avoid those companies going into bankruptcy. Everyone was paying a share of the potential loss in the event of a storm in advance.
So this idea of spreading the risk around is really the fundamental principle of modern day car insurance and all insurance policies. So let's keep that in mind, because later, knowing that it's a spreading of the risk among lots of people and understanding how insurance companies actually rate their premiums, that's where we start to make savings on our policy with a little bit of knowledge. So in the UK here, we cover the vehicle for specific drivers. So you would typically have a policy with a set of named drivers, although you can get some policies that cover any driver over a certain age, and it's generally over 25, sometimes it's over 21. Those policies do cost a bit more because the insurance company are taking on more risk. But looking at the car itself and those that drive it is the way that modern insurance companies rate their premiums. Now, it would be a little bit unfair, wouldn't it, if everyone paid the same cost? The young driver who is extremely likely to have an accident,
and the older driver who has a lot more experience tends to drive a much more safe, lower powered car and is much less likely to have an accident.
It wouldn't be fair to ask him to pay the shared cost of that high risk young driver. So insurance companies start looking at many different factors, but before we get into that, let's look at the three basic types of cover that the insurance companies offer. So the lowest form of car insurance is third party only cover, and that literally just covers damage you do to other people. You're not allowed on the roads unless you've got that very basic insurance in place. Now, the next level up includes an element of cover for your own car. The policy cover is called third party fire and theft. As self-explanatory as it is, it also covers you if your car was involved in a fire or if it was stolen. And in some cases, theft would also cover possessions from the car that was stolen, or if the radio was stolen, or just parts of the car were damaged during an attempted theft. The top level of cover that's offered is fully comprehensive, and that covers all damage done to your car, whether you did it yourself or some other person did it. Now, if you have comprehensive cover, it can make dealing with a claim a lot smoother because you're claiming against your own insurance company. They will foot the bill, sort out repairs, and give your car back to you. And then in the background, they will make the legal claims against the other car insurers involved and recover their costs. If you don't have comprehensive cover and the accident is not your fault, then you end up having to chase other people and other insurance companies to pay out for your car and to compensate you for your injuries and damages. So that can be quite a lengthy process. Comprehensive cover is the top level of cover that you can get in the UK. But insurance policies now vary. There's so many add-ons that you can get to the policies. So we'll discuss some of those and typically what a comprehensive insurance policy will cover. These are things like windscreen, personal possessions, personal injury, provision of a hire car. Now, some policies may actually exclude some of those. They may even offer them as bolt-on extras. So you don't necessarily have everything covered with a comprehensive policy. You really do have to check your small print, and insurance companies do love their small print. Another add-on that is worth getting is a protected no claims discount. So every year you go without making a claim, you get a discount off your premium. And generally speaking, the first year's discount is worth about 30%, and then it increases to 40, 50, 60,
65%, 70%, some insurers
offer 70%. But the general idea is that as you build up periods without a claim, you get rewarded for that by way of a discount from your premium. Now, protected no claims bonus effectively gives you some lives to lose before you start losing your no claims bonus. So if you had an accident without the protection in place, you would lose 2 years of your no claims discount. So if you were just in your third year, that's really unfortunate because it wipes out the year you're in and you go back 2 years, so you would effectively lose all of your no claims discount. So protecting your no claims bonus is generally only available if you have the full no claims discount. And the way insurance companies deal with claims and how they affect your no claims bonus does vary. Some of them, it's guaranteed no claims bonus. You can have as many accidents as you want and you'll still have your discount, but that doesn't preclude them having the opportunity to load your premium, which a lot of people aren't aware of. But insurance companies can impose loads on insurance premiums in addition to any discounts that you're getting. So it may not be as good as it sounds. And other companies will give you 2 claims in 3 years, 3 claims in 5 years. It's stipulated in the small print, so do check that. But generally, as it goes, if you have an accident and you've got a protected no claims bonus, you will still have that same discount when your renewal comes up if you've got that protection in place. And it doesn't generally cost very much, so it is definitely worth considering. It's a handy thing to have. The other thing that we need to be aware of is the excess. So this is the amount that you pay towards your own claim. You never pay an excess towards someone else's claim, but you've got a policy that covers your car, be it fire, theft or fully comprehensive. The excess is really the amount that you're going to pay towards your claims. So that's generally about £100. You can add on to that for a discount on your premium. If you said to your insurance company, I will pay the first £500 of any claim, they will give you a discount from your premium because they're not carrying as much risk. As getting into the realms of those tiny little accidents where they won't be required to pay anything out. You're just talking about a bumper scuff or some minor respraying or very, very minor work that can generally be sorted out within your excess. So they're quite happy for you to take on an excess. The discounts offered aren't particularly generous, but it is a way of keeping those premiums down. And policies often have different levels of excess depending on what you're claiming for. So you'll get a fire or a theft excess, and the windscreen excess is generally lower. I remember when windscreen excesses used to be £25 many years ago, but nowadays it's generally about £60 or £70, and often you need to use their recommended repairer. They have deals in place with companies that replace windscreens, and if you don't go through their deals, they don't get the discount, and they're well within their rights to charge you a higher excess you decide to go that route. So again, read your small print. It's all about small print. Make sure that you understand your policy. They're not all the same. Often the less you pay, the more restrictions and loopholes there are in there. So that's certainly something that we need to be aware of. Now here's a little tip. If your car is off the road, you don't necessarily need to cancel your insurance policy. With most insurers, you can suspend the policy. You can even suspend the policy but keep fire and theft cover in place. So speak to your insurer if you're expecting a period of time where your car is not on the road. If it's even stored on the road and not used, you still need third-party liability cover. But if you know the car is off the road and it's not going to be used, maybe it's in the garage and you're doing a bit of work on it and getting it ready for the summer, in that case, talk to your insurance company and suspend that policy, because it is silly losing money. Whether they instantly suspend your premium payments or they give you a credit at the end of the year or they just tack on the period it's suspended for at the end of the renewal date, depends very much on the insurer, but certainly have that conversation. The availability availability is there to restrict the cover of your policy if your car is actually off the road. You can also make temporary adjustments. So if you have a driver that uses your car, maybe when they come once a year on holiday to visit you, you don't need to have them on that policy the entire year. You can have a temporary additional driver in place, and that will cover them for the period stipulated, which can often be for as little as 1 hour up to about 30 days. Some insurers are more generous. So think about the amount of risk you're giving the insurers, and if genuinely one of the drivers is only going to use the car for very, very limited periods of the time, tell the insurance company and just restrict the policy so they're only covered during those very, very limited periods of the year. If you also do a very limited mileage, tell the insurance company. So if you're not racking up the miles as much as some other drivers might, there could be an argument there for having a reduced premium because your car is not being used as much. Now, there is also an argument there that if you're not driving very much, you're more prone to have an accident because you'll be lacking experience. But if you've got a second car, that's really no excuse. So talk to your insurance company. It all depends on their statistics. So we spoke earlier about them spreading the risk among all of the drivers. So there's lots of factors that they take into account. So the area you live, so you might live in a busy city where there's very busy roads, there's a lot of accidents, a lot of minor shunts, and there's a high crime rate. If that's where you live, that's going to be reflected in the premiums you pay. So they will load up those premiums in those high risk areas. If you live in the middle of nowhere with lovely roads and there's hardly ever any accidents because you don't see any other vehicles, that'll be reflected by way of a discounted premium. So they will charge you lower rates. So they look at where you live, the areas, and the statistics they get from those areas with regard to accidents, so they can proportion the payments for the potential claims among all of their different policyholders. So that's something you can't really do anything about. But if you leave your car on the road or on a drive, that can affect your premium. So lowering the risk to the insurance company by having your car stored on the drive or in a garage overnight can actually result in slightly lower premiums. So if you've got the availability, just clear out that garage and stick your car in it, because you will save a little bit on your car insurance if you actually do that. So another risk factor that you can't really do very much about other than just wait is your age. So as a young driver, you are statistically so likely to have an accident. In fact, I've heard figures that people who pass their test first time generally have an accident within 2 months of driving their car. It's about a 50-50 chance of people in that category. So insurance companies look at the entire spectrum of statistics. And I noted as well while I was in the industry that sometimes premiums started to go up as people hit their senior years. So again, the accident rate increases. Now, it's fair to say that the accidents that an older driver has are generally quite small. They generally are much more cautious, and you're talking about very silly little accidents, dents and scrapes on the bumper, that sort of thing. So that again is reflected in the premium. But sometimes if you're a young driver and you say to your insurance company, I'm going to add an older driver to my policy because we're going to share the car, they're going to use it in the evenings or weekends, to the insurance company, they're happy now because you're not driving the car all the time. For a proportion of the time that that car is used, it's going to be driven by a much more careful driver. So I've seen instances where adding an additional driver to your policy can actually result in a discount on your premium. And that's the key, really, looking for anomalies in the way that insurance companies rate their premiums. Each insurer has their own specific pool of clients. So there might be an old person's insurance company, and approaching them for a quote, you may well get better rates because their claims ratio is much lower. So they attract lower risk drivers, and as a result of that, they can offer lower premiums. So you might actually spread your net a little bit. In the UK, they can't discriminate between male and female drivers, and you used to have a lot of lady driver policies offering cheaper rates and discounts. But now you can go to them as a bloke and get a quote from a lady driver insurance. And if their pool of statistics is still in your favour, you will be looking at a lower premium. So think outside the box when it comes to choosing your insurer. If you have a modified car, go to a modified car insurance specialist because they know what they're dealing with. And in fairness, people who drive modified cars and they've worked on the cars themselves tend to be a lot more careful. You've got an investment of time and effort in that vehicle, and you are going to look after it and drive more carefully. And a lot of mods actually make a car more safe. So if you've improved the brakes, if you've improved the handling and the road holding abilities of the car, you've actually made it a safer car to drive than how it would have been when it rolled out of the factory production line. So that again is something a specialist modified car insurer can take into account. So you might have added an alarm to your car, so that would reduce reduce the risk from theft. There might be a tracker on the car, so if it is stolen, it can be recovered and it's not going to be shipped off somewhere and stripped for parts, or it's going to have its identity changed. So you stand a better chance of getting a lower premium if you've taken these reasonable steps to protect your car. Things like occupation also comes into it. Now, you can't lie on your insurance policy. The minute you have lied, you're actually committing an offence, and that is punishable by law, and insurance companies are within their rights to just declare your policy void and leave you dealing with a claim. So be very specific when it comes to describing your job, but you can be careful in the way that you describe your job. If you worked for a school, for example, as a caretaker, you may just tick the "I work in education" box, and that may attract a completely different rate to if you were a caretaker. So play around with how you describe your job. Are you a caretaker, or are you a caretaker at a school and part of the education establishment? So little things like that, just rewording what you do. Being a clerical assistant rather than a secretary can also, and in some cases, make differences to your premium. There was another anomaly that I had working in insurance. We were doing lots of quotes for a young lad, and it actually worked out cheaper for him to do comprehensive insurance. So there was an insurer that specialised in comprehensive insurance, and because they specialise in comprehensive insurance, and most young drivers don't ever think about getting comprehensive insurance, they just want the very cheapest policy they can get to get themselves on the road. They never really ask the question. So this company's risk profile is very good. So if you ask for a comprehensive insurance policy as a young person, they haven't really got any statistics to work from. So you will often find there's a much lower premium there. And if you were willing to have one of those black boxes fitted that track your driving style, or allow the insurance company to track the car if it's stolen, you can be talking about a reduction in your premium. And just the knowledge of having a black box there watching you can make you a much more careful driver. Other things that you can do to improve your risk in the insurance company's eyes is advanced driving tests. So in the UK, we've got the Pass Plus for learner drivers that have passed their test. They can go on an additional course that trains them up in sort of more advanced driving techniques. And you've got the Institute of Advanced Motorists and other advanced driving qualifications. So if you go through those, you will often find the insurance companies will see you as a better driver and a lower risk. And as a result of that, they will lower your premium. Please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss out. Don't forget to stay tuned. Throw us up a like, because that really helps us to get out there. And please let me know what you think of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.